The next factor that affects demand is income. How does income affects quantity demand, and how does that change demand? So in this graph, you have here an example of a product, and the product is shoes. You have here in the y-axis the price, and x-axis quantity demand. Let's just say the price of this pair of shoes is $200 and quantity demand is 500. What happens to the demand for shoes if your income rises? Logic will tell us that when income rises, setting other factors constant, your demand for a certain product has to increase. So this example, you have this price is 200. The price will not change, but we have to show an increase in quantity demand. And the only way to show that is a shift to the right of the demand curve. So the price will not change, but quantity demand has to increase from 500 to 900. Any product, so this new point, point B, lies on the new demand curve, the demand curve 2. Any product, and please remember this, any product that behaves like this, that when your income rises, the demand for that product also rises, is what we call as a normal good. Most of the products are normal goods. Now, let's say, for example, your income goes down. So setting other factors constant, if your income, if you have less money, you have less capability to buy certain items. So in this case, the price of this product will not change, but your quantity demand has to decrease. So we have to show a decrease in quantity demand via shift to the left of the demand curve. Shift to the left decreases your quantity, it shows a decrease in quantity demand from 500 to 250. Okay, so the next factor is the price of substitutes. Substitutes are competing products. Say for example, Coke and Pepsi, Nike and Adidas. What else? You have any product that are considered any product that are competing products. So in this example, this demand curve is the demand curve for Coke. So once again, the price of Coke is in your y-axis. Price is always in the y-axis. Quantity demand is always in the x-axis. So what happens to the demand for Coke if the price of Pepsi increases? If the price of Pepsi increases, Pepsi is more expensive. So people, setting other factors constant, people will buy more Coke than Pepsi. So if this is the demand curve for Coke, if Pepsi's price increases, there will be more people who will demand Coke. So demand curve, quantity demand has to increase. Same price of Coke, but we have to show an increase in the quantity demand, and like what we did before, a shift to the right of the demand curve will show an increase in demand, quantity demand for this product. So once again, we're not talking about the price. That's why the price is not changing. We're talking about the price of another product, the substitute product, the competing product. So in this example, it's Pepsi. So we have a new demand curve. We label it demand curve 2. Second question here, what happens to the demand for Coke if the price of Pepsi decreases? If the price of Pepsi decreases, more people will buy Pepsi rather than Coke. Once again, setting other factors constant. We're not looking at your preference and so on and so forth. We're just setting those factors constant. In this world, if the price of Pepsi goes down, people will buy Coke. People will buy Pepsi rather. So since this graph shows the demand curve for Coke, if the Pepsi's price decreases, people will buy more Pepsi. So demand for Coke decreases, and the only way to show that is a shift to the left of the demand curve. So less quantity from 500 to 250. All right. So the next one are complements, complementary goods. Complements are products that are used together, like cars and gas, iTunes and iPods, ebooks and e-readers, and so on and so forth. Shoes and socks, toothpaste and toothbrushes. These are products that are used together. So in this example, we have this is the demand curve or the graph for iTunes, which is a complementary product, something that is used with iPods. So we will look into two separate but related products, iPods and iTunes. This is the demand curve for iTunes. So question number one, what happens to the demand of iTunes if iPods become super cheap? If iPods are cheap, people will buy more iPods, and definitely they will also buy more iTunes. So this is the demand curve for iTunes. The price of iTunes will not change, but we have to show an increase in the quantity demand for iTunes because people will buy more iTunes because iPods are cheaper. So one way to show that, the only way to show an increase in quantity demand is to shift to the right of the demand curve from showing a new quantity demand which is greater than 500. So it's 500 to a billion. Uh, and this will give us a new demand curve labeled as D2. Okay, so on the other hand, what happens to the demand curve for iTunes if iPods become super expensive? So once again, setting other factors constant. If iPods are expensive, do you think you will buy more iTunes? Definitely not. So in this case, we have to show a decrease in quantity demand for iTunes, and the only way to show that is to shift to the left of the demand curve. So same price, 150, $1.50 rather, new less demand, quantity demand from 500 to 250. All right. Hopefully you're seeing the pattern that we have here, that the price is not changing, but the quantity demand are either increasing or decreasing, and the only way to show that is a shift to the right of the demand curve or a shift to the left of the demand curve. A shift to the right is an increase in quantity demand, and a shift to the left is a decrease in quantity demand. Now let's look at the next the last factor that affects demand, which is expectations. What are expectations? Expectations are something that you expect, from the word itself. Expect, something that you anticipate. Uh, it could be anything. It could be wars. It could be bad weather. It could be anything. So our expectations of the future will definitely have an impact to our demand. So in this example, say for example, you anticipate that tomorrow there is a snowstorm coming. So since you anticipate that event, I'm pretty sure that some people like me, for example, will make sure that I have some items with me at home. So I'll probably buy milk or bread and things like that, necessities. So in this example, this graph is the demand for graph for milk. You have, once again, y-axis, you have the price of milk, and the x-axis, you have quantity demand for milk. This is the D1 is the demand curve for milk, price of $3, and quantity demand of 500. Question number one, what happens to demand for milk if people expect that there will be a snowstorm tomorrow? So if there's snowstorm coming, people will buy more milk, so quantity demand for milk has to increase. So once again, where will your demand curve shift? Will it shift to the left or shift to the right? Definitely it will shift to the right, showing an increase for your quantity demand. So there are a lot of factors that affect demand. If we go back to, we have there the price, income, and so on and so forth. We will go back to those examples, to those factors later. Well, first, before that, I would like to remind you of our focus question. What is the difference between the change in quantity demand and the change in demand? Um, if it is the price that affects your quantity demand, this is what we call as the change in quantity demand. Um, if I will go back to the this slide, this is a change in quantity demand. As you can see here, the quantity demand changes as the price changes. The distinction here is that there is only one demand curve. There's a change in price will we will have a movement along the demand curve. There's no shift. On the other hand, uh, a change in demand, okay, change in demand will shift your demand curve uh, to the right or to the left, and the change in demand can be uh, an influence of any of the following: price of the substitute, the income, the price of complements, expectations, taste, and preference. So any of these things that shifts your demand curve to the right or to the left, that's what we call as a change in demand. So once again, a change in quantity demand is brought about by price change in quantity demand, change in demand, or the shifts of the demand curve is brought about by the non-price factors. The price of the substitutes, the price of the other product, income, the price of a complementary good, complementary goods are products that are used together, consumed together, expectations, and taste and preference. So hopefully this uh, presentation help you understand the difference between the change in demand and change in quantity demand, and also help you understand how your demand curve will shift either to the left or to the right if we are talking about non-price factors.